My name is Donna Rodwick. My program today is It's Only a State Line. For this program, we are referring to the Indiana-Michigan state line, or should I say Michigan-Indiana state line. Maybe it depends on which side of the state line you live. I would like to share with you how many of the people, places, and events in Michigan, north of the state line, helped influence the history of Bristol, Indiana, south of the state line. Enjoy the program as we connect the dots between the two states. The Erie Canal opened in 1825. Settlers were able to reach the Michigan Territory by water, turning the nation's westward push north without having to drop all the way down to the Ohio River or follow an overland route. In this movement, the Old Sauk Trail played a key role as settlers left their boats in Detroit to travel overland to Chicago and points in between. One prominent settler of South Porter Township was Jarvis Hitchcock, who came in 1830. He then moved his family here the following year, 1831. The journey from their home in Erie County, New York, being by schooner to Detroit, and from there by team to Union. Another prominent settler was Samuel King, who came at the age of 13 in the autumn of 1829. He earned $30 the first year, which was the beginning of land purchases, which were to earn him the reputation as the largest landowner in the township. We heard about the King family in the King Store story. The Hartman family came to the Montville Union area in 1829. One of the sons, Jonas, was the father of Barbara Hartman, who was the wife of Samuel King. We are beginning to connect our dots to Bristol. US 12 has many names. The corridor through which it passes has been used by man since prehistoric times. When Europeans first entered Michigan in the 17th century, the route was already a well-established pathway through the wilderness. It roughly followed from Lake Erie to Lake Michigan. Near Saline, Michigan, and parallel to the highway, paleontologists from the University of Michigan excavated portions of the longest mastodon trail ever found, suggesting that game animals were using the corridor over 10,000 years ago. The native peoples of Michigan who hunted the animals followed, establishing migratory routes. The trail was used by both native peoples and the French in the lucrative fur trade. When the paleontologists were asked, what if a longer mastodon trail is found somewhere in the world? The reply was, we'll just keep digging and make this the longest one. Congress decided in April 1824 to make military roads in the United States and territories. They felt a military road along the Sauk Trail was a way to move troops quickly in case of an Indian uprising. It actually proved to be more useful in settling the state. The surveyors planned to survey a road straight across Michigan. After 1 mile, they realized this wasn't possible. There were too many swamps, forests, and other conditions that wouldn't allow this to be. They realized the Native Americans traveled a trail east and west. The Native Americans followed the old Mastodon Trail. They knew the animals traveled by instinct and had already established a well-traveled trail. The great surveyors were the unnamed Native Americans, who marked the trails that eventually became the roadways and highways throughout the state. We do know of one great surveyor. Moses Robbins was an engineer and a surveyor who worked 6 to 10 years on the road, according to his great-granddaughter. We know he left his mark in Cass County and has many descendants living here. The first mile of concrete pavement was placed in Detroit, Michigan on Woodward Avenue. It was built in 1909 at a cost at the time of $14,000. Henry Ford built this road to test drive his new cars. Jumping ahead a century, we can see how the surveyor's work and the building of the military road was a major factor in settling our area. The Great Trail made travel easier for the settlers coming in from the east, heading west. The 1909 picture shows the first mile of paved road out of Detroit. It was also the first mile surveyed a century earlier. Bottom is a picture of Union, Michigan on US 12. This shows the two county maps, bisecting Indiana Lake almost in half. The Cass County map is an 1860 plat map, that's the top map. The Elkhart County 1861 plat map is on the bottom. You see any familiar Bristol names? I see some on the maps, connecting our dots to Bristol. The Indiana-Michigan boundary was surveyed with mileposts set along its entire 105-mile length. In 1816, Indiana became the 19th state, and in 1837, Michigan became the 26th state. One might be a little confused, as many of the places in Michigan we talk about have an Bristol, Indiana address. The Union Post Office opened in 1831. Uncle Sam closed the Union Post Office on January 15, 1914, and for 51 years, area residents had a Bristol, Indiana address. The post office finally returned to Union in 1965, connecting our dots. This map shows some of the important places we will be learning about. Union and Zimmyville are underlined in green. Indiana, Baldwin, Long, Coverdale, and Robbins Lakes are marked in blue. The Michigan-Indiana state line is marked in red. Notice how the state line bisects Indiana Lake. Robbins Lake was settled by Moses Robbins, our surveyor of the Salt Trail, connecting our dots. This second map shows the water flow from Indiana Lake to Baldwin Lake to Long. Robbins Lake flows into Long Lake. Long Lake then goes to Coverdale Lake and also to Trout Creek. From Trout Creek, it goes on to the St. Joe River, heading to Bristol, connecting our dots. Very few people know about the water power from Indiana Lake. There was a sawmill company north of Bristol that used water power from Indiana Lake. Indiana Lake is about 12 feet higher than the river at Bristol, so that's 12 feet of headwater. The Little Elkhart River running into the St. Joe had plenty of fall, so that one time there were 7 water-powered mills in the area. There were several dams in the Little Elkhart River between Bristol and Middlebury. Today, 2 mills are still in operation using the water power. Bonneville Mill, still in operation since 1837. Miller's Mill, just north of Middlebury, was built in 1849. They are a family-owned business and continue to press apples for cider. They also cut logs for timber in the winter months, connecting our dots to Bristol. The water from Indiana Lake flows under Wayne Street into Baldwin Lake. As we travel from the south end of Baldwin Lake to the north, I'll share a few places you may have heard about. Traveling north on Baldwin Lake, on the east side of the lake, we come to the site of the Greystone Lodge, later known as the Baldwin Lake Hotel. Harry Wiley lived in a tent while building the Greystone Lodge. Harry Wiley built the lodge in 1908 and 1909. It was for fishing and family gatherings. The Greystone Lodge was made of gray cement blocks. The lodge had 13 units, and the rates were $2 a day and $10 a week, including boat and fishing tackle. Livery service or auto pickup service from Bristol cost only $1. The staff caught fish in large nets and had a big fish dinner on Sundays. These dinners were popular with people from Bristol and the surrounding area, continuing to connect our dots. This undated picture identifies it as the Wiley Summer Resort, Bristol, Indiana. See the letters at the top of the picture? I believe the building to the left would be the ice house. It looks like only men are fishing, maybe a Sunday afternoon. Men are wearing white dress shirts, and some have ties on. This picture was taken about 1910, still owned by Harry Wiley until 1913. Notice the red letters on the bottom left picture, identifying as Hotel Baldwin Lake, Bristol, Indiana. In 1910, if the picture is correct, the address would still have been Union, Michigan. Remember, Uncle Sam's post office closed in Union on January 15, 1914. This picture gives us a glimpse of the hotel up on the hill. This is a picture of a hotel guest in a wooden fishing boat. Hilltop Drive is in the background, which would be the west side of Baldwin Lake, a day fishing on Baldwin Lake. Harry Wiley sold the Greystone Lodge in 1913 to Louis Quinton. The hotel was never used commercially again and became a local residence. Mr. Quinton was what we would call a gentleman farmer. He built a very large barn and a pigeon house to raise squab. He built an ice house and sold ice that they cut from the lake. After Mrs. Quinton passed, Mr. Quinton had already passed, her sister Louise and her husband, Charles Hartshorn, took over the Quinton property in the late 1920s. Years later, the Hartshorn's granddaughter, Mary Lou, and her husband, Weldon Parks, lived there until they passed. At that time, the home was sold and removed. The address for the home was Hartshorn Drive. Today, Scott and Shelley Virgil have a lovely home on the site. Scott is the grandson of Carl and Ermin Virgil, who operated the Virgil's IGA Grocery in the former Interurban train station building on the current site of the Key Bank location on Main Street in Bristol, Indiana. They were in business from 1927 to 1947. During the turn of the 20th century, when our area had a big draw on fishermen, Scott's grandfather, Carl, served as a fishing guide and was doubtless on the property. Next, the water flows from Baldwin Lake under Sunset Boulevard into Long Lake through a channel. At one time, there was a much larger channel and an outlet with a bridge over it. This is a bridge between Baldwin and Long Lake, taken about 1911. It's similar to the picture Jack showed for his program about the Naughty Boys, which was the bridge over Trout Creek. This is another picture, a lady in her boat, the outlet from Baldwin to Long Lake, Bristol, Indiana. Looks as if the lady is dressed in fine clothes. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is a different lady, a different view, 1922. The outlet was much larger than it is now. Al and Roy taking a swim in Baldwin Lake where the water flows into Long Lake. The same view with the previous pictures of the ladies at the bridge. The boys are identified as Al and Roy, the little boy being 15 months and 3 weeks old. The old tile and stone bridge across the channel between Balloon Lake and Long Lake was replaced by a culvert in the 1940s. When the opening was larger, people could take their boats through. Now it is possible, but not as likely for people to go through. That's our break.